And last weekend, we were all treated to one heck of a show at Daytona. A few hours ago, NBC Sports said this was the most watched IMSA race since 2008. NBC viewership averaged over 1.1 million people, and altogether, NBC and NBCSN had an increase of 19% viewership. And definitely the 59th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona did not disappoint. Starting with the DPI class, we saw an epic race for the entire 24 hours. In the closing minutes of the race, Ringer Van de Zande and Chip Ganassi Race's number one and number oh 01 Cadillac DPI was chasing down Felipe Albuquerque and number 10 Wayne Taylor is in Konica Minolta Acura DPI. As the Flying Dutchman got closer and closer to Albuquerque, a tire went down on the Ganassi Cadillac, forcing Van de Zande to pit. This ultimately handed the win to Wayne Taylor racing Felipe Albuquerque, Ricky Taylor, Alexander Rossi, and Helio Castroneves, their third consecutive overall victory in the Rolex 24 for Wayne Taylor Racing, and their fourth overall win in the last 5 years. For years in LMP1 at Le Mans, people always noted Audi has been the team to beat for so many years because they've won Le Mans thir- 13 times. With Wayne Taylor Racing dominating the Rolex 24 these last few years, are they on their way to becoming one of the legendary sports car teams like Team Yost?
I do say they are definitely one of the legendary teams in sports car racing. The Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona is definitely up there when it comes to some of the most prestigious events. And sports car racing, of course, nothing can beat Le Mans 24 Hours, but still, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, especially as Aaron had mentioned in our special program, the challenges of that event on the equipment, the drivers, everything. It takes a lot to win. And to see just to not only win one, but multiple, and now three in a row, 4 out of the last five, it's just an amazing effort by that team.
One of Van der Zande's teammates was ex Haas F1 driver Kevin Magnussen. Just talked about his former Haas F1 teammate Roman Grosjean. And when I woke up on Sunday morning, I saw Kevin Magnussen make an aggressive, bold pass for the lead, something we never got to see him do in Formula One. In IMSA, he has an opportunity to show what he can do behind the wheel, where a driver can play a much bigger role with closer competition. The same thing for Roman Grosjean in IndyCar. I know I already said this to all of my followers on Twitter. You can follow me at Kobe Lambeth on Twitter. But Joe, can you imagine the smile under Kevin Magnussen's helmet as he actually had a car that could fight for the lead?
Oh man, definitely he had to have such a good, feel good day, night, and the following day racing. I know one of the big things Roman Grosjean said he talked to Kevin Magnussen after the 24 Hours of Daytona, and Kevin expressed how it was such a change, a nice change to be in competitive equipment, to be running up front, to be racing for the win, and considering everything they went through in Haas together, being in the back. When they were up front, we all famously remember Australia, how their tires literally came off after that pit stop, ruined their good run, and they just been plagued in the back. So for Kevin Magnussen, as he told Roman Grosjean, it was just such a positive change to be up front and be competitive again and continue for a win.
Yeah, definitely. And in LMP two, Joe, I know both of us we had a little bet here. I said that a WEC P2 team would win, and Joe said it would be an IMSA team. Ultimately, I'm the loser, and Joe won this time around, but I'm going to get him next time. Arab Motorsport took class honors with Kyle Tilley, Dwight Merriman, Ryan Dial, and Paul Luke Chatin. And this was not only a special win for Arab Motorsport, but also a little boy from Canada. Arab Motorsport had a contest where a race fan could design a special livery for their LMP2 car. Owen from Ottawa, I know they mentioned him several times during the NBC broadcast, won the contest and designed the livery that ended up winning the LMP2 class at Daytona. For a young race fan like Owen, how important are contests like this to get the next generation of race fans involved and engaged?
It is huge. I mean, that race fan is going to be a race fan for life, easily. I mean, how many young kids do you know that can name a sports car team, let alone the drivers that won a class in the Rolex 24? This young fan, he now can. He's definitely going to be fun. I think this is the kind of stuff we like to see, engaging younger audience, making it where they feel there is something vested in them. He's going to treasure that paint scheme forever, and that paint scheme is going to live essentially forever in the history books as a winner of the Rolex 24 Hours.
Yes, and that's definitely a great way to create a fan for life. And I know if I was that age and I saw that happen with the livery that I designed, I'd be jumping up and down and going crazy, like so excited. And I'd love racing for the rest of my life. I'm just really happy for Owen that Aero Motorsport won in his livery because I know that's something that he'll remember for the rest of his life. And Riley Motorsports took class honors in LMP3 series debut with drivers Gar Robinson, Scott Andrews, and two former full-time IndyCar drivers, Spencer Pigot and Oliver Askew. Looking at Askew, we know the story about his fall from grace at Aero McLaren SP after his concussion. We know what happened there, and then he landed his IMSA seat, earned a Rolex watch, and traveled to Sebring the next day. At Sebring, he participated in a preseason IndyCar test with his old Indy Lights team. Andretti Autosport substituting for James Hinchcliffe, who could not make the test session. First day Rolex 24 win, then testing an IndyCar for Andretti the very next day. Is Oliver Askew on a path to redemption?
It sure looks like it, doesn't it? Considering this is very similar to a time where we've seen a driver lose out on a ride, they land and test and roll, that keeps them active, that keeps them in shape, keep them to date with the car. They're not following behind if they're out of the car 2 or 3 years. This is something where, for Askew, cars play right for him. He could easily be back in IndyCar, and with this LMP3 win, definitely got a lot of people talking about him for a good cause.
Yeah, definitely. Oliver Askew, after looking at some of his lap times, he did a really good job filling in for James Hinchcliffe. And I'm sure we haven't heard the last of Oliver Askew in the IndyCar series. And in GTLM, we saw a Corvette 1-2 finish. How many times have we said that? With the number 3 entry, earning a Rolex watch with Jordan Taylor, Antonio Garcia, Nicky Katzberg. We'll have a follow up shortly, diving in a little deeper to highlight a breaking news story after the race involving one of the Corvette racing drivers. Flashing back to the start of the race, we saw a crazy incident involving Bruno Spengler's BMW and Kevin Estra's Porsche. At the GT field split start, Spengler got in the back of Estra and turned him around in front of all the GT cars. This ultimately ruined the WeatherTech Porsche's chance for victory. Overall, there was decent action in GTLM's last ever Rolex 24, and it's really sad that I'm saying that. Yeah, so we saw intense Corvette battles. BMW was definitely up there as well. The Risi Ferrari led late until a pit stop dropped in the fourth in class. So definitely a great race in GTLM and wonderful memories, especially now I'm thinking about that Corvette photo finish from several years ago. Joe, what do you think of GTLM's final dance at Daytona?
It was overall a good race, definitely a good showing from the GTLM class. I think a lot of people are going to miss that class going forward, but it's just part of the sport, the direction it's going. I think what they're going to do, making essentially a pro class in the future for GT racing, might be something that will get people excited. Now, we do want to remind everyone, if you are in the chat room, be sure share your questions or opinions with us. We'll be happy to share it online and try our best to answer your questions.
Yeah, and really appreciate my good friend Joe Dexter right there for watching. Appreciate you, Joe, and make sure, Joe, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll definitely answer them, as Joe Samniego just said. And last but not least, the GTD class was ultra competitive. I remember the final hours of the race when the GTD teams had their quickest drivers behind the wheel. Drivers who are the best of the best: Mario Engel, Rafael Marcello, Andrea Caldarelli, Klaus Bachler, Ross Gunn, and many more. At the end of the day, the number 57 Windward racing Mercedes-AMG GT3 won the GTD class with Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Andy Donch, and Mauro Engel. Windward is a well-known team in the Michelin Pilot Challenge who made their GTD debut, also in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in general. And in December, with an interview with Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, team owner Bryce Ward said the team had only planned to race in the Rolex 24 with a move to GTD likely full time next year. After winning at Daytona, do you think they might reevaluate their program and go all out for the Endurance Championship?
I say they definitely have to. I mean, after getting this win, just seeing the excitement when that Mercedes was coming across the finish line, all them on pit wall just screaming, cheering. They pull off this huge win. They have to reevaluate. People are going to want to see them at the track. They're going to want to see that car. I think it's going to make it for a really great year overall for the program.
And after the race, Chevrolet issued a statement that Corvette racing driver Antonio Garcia had tested positive for COVID-19. Although he wasn't experiencing symptoms, he was pulled immediately from the Rolex 24 when it was known that his test came back positive. and this meant Jordan Taylor and Nicky Catsburg had to drive the final hours of the race as a duo without the driver dubbed as the King of Spain. Garcia's positive test led to many questions as others wondered how something like this wasn't caught before the race and potentially exposing others to the virus. Corvette Racing even received criticism for waiting until the race had ended before revealing Garcia's positive test. A few hours later, Garcia responded to this situation on social media, admitting that he tested positive for COVID-19 in late December and had symptoms, but he decided not to share this information with the public because he felt that it was something that's personal and private. He ended up recovering from the virus 5 weeks ago and described his test result as a false positive. And the fragments of that virus can remain in your body for a while, which can sometimes lead to a positive result. And in the end, Antonio Garcia cleared up such a confusing situation as it was happening in real time, and he'll definitely be looking forward to getting back in the number 3 Corvette Racing C8R at Sebring next month. Now here's a full rundown of the 2021 Rolex 24 Daytona finish in order and race summary.
DPI had a total of 7 cars. Tough break for Chase Elliott and the Wheeling Engineering team as they only matched a 6th place finish due to mechanical issues that plagued their race. LMP2, Cody Ware and Austin Dillon bring down Rick Ware Racing 51 home in 4th place, considering the big news with Rick Ware Racing and Roman Grosjean. Great start for their season. Tough break for Robert Kubica and Ryan VK, where they both finished with mechanical issues out and early of the Rolex 24 Hours in Daytona. Now over at LMP3. LMP3 only saw 5 out of the 7 entries finish the class. This is the first F for LMP3. Meanwhile, over in GTLM, the final outing for this class saw 6 participate. Of course, we know the issues the WeatherTech team faced at the start. Meanwhile, GTD. Turner Motorsport 6th place had a little bit of a scare in pit road when a couple crew members were hit by the fueling rig as he tried to drive away with the fuel rig attached. Meanwhile, Christina Nelson, Catherine Legg bringing home a top 10 finish in GTD. Great effort by them. Looking forward to see how they do all season long. In total, there was 19 teams in GTD Daytona this year. Overall, very competitive class. Looking forward to Sebring. Of course, the race went 24 hours. In total, there was 12 cautions for 72 laps, 72 lane changes. A very eventful Daytona Rolex 24 Hours.